How are you? Good, how are you?
You're an amazing player. Congratulations.
Thanks.
You're changing the history in basketball.
I appreciate it. Thanks for coming here.
Across the footage of the Brazilian national team dancing on Caitlin Clark logo at Carver Arena. Man, a lot of people had mixed reviews about it. Well, it looked like that wasn't the only clip because the entire team got in on the action, bruh. Got in on the jumping on Caitlin Clark logo, stomping on it, dancing.
And honestly, I didn't plan to shoot that logo 3. I know coming into the game, everybody wanted me to shoot one from there. But Steph was like, I'm supposed to come out at the end of the third, so she's like, give a foul, give a foul, give a foul. And then it was 30 seconds on the clock, which like between 30 to 33, that's like your 2-for-1 range where you have to get one up. So I saw 30 as we're inbounding the ball, which probably is inbounding the ball at 30, probably a little low. But I was like, why not? Might as well launch one. And it went in, and then Steph used the timeout to get me out. But yeah, that was pretty.
Was it possible?
Could a quiet, behind-the-scenes scrimmage, held far from packed stadiums and the relentless spotlight of national broadcasts, reveal more about Caitlin Clark's growing legacy than her highly anticipated WNBA debut ever could? It wasn't just a low-stakes exhibition. What unfolded during that closed-door matchup against an international squad may have unlocked a much deeper story. An unexpected, brutally honest remark from a foreign coach, and a visibly stunned opponent who seemed transformed by the matchup, hinted that something far more profound had taken place. Not just impressive basketball, but something magnetic. Something rare. Whispers from those inside the gym suggest this wasn't just another practice run. It was a moment that reshaped how insiders view Clark, not merely as an elite talent, but as a disruptive presence. A generational force with the power to shift energy, tilt narratives, and rewrite expectations the moment she steps on the court. The setting itself was far from conventional. Tucked away from the media frenzy and fanfare, this quiet scrimmage had all the makings of a private tune-up, but what happened inside those four walls would ripple far beyond them. It wasn't some preseason spectacle promoted across sports networks. It was a low-profile matchup, the Indiana Fever facing off against Brazil's senior women's national team, quietly unfolding behind closed doors. Into this muted atmosphere stepped Brazil's head coach, a veteran of the global game, well-versed in the tactics and tempo of international play. His presence brought not just experience, but an outside perspective unshaped by American sports narratives or hype. At first, everything was routine. Courteous greetings, standard warm-ups. Nothing out of the ordinary. But then, during pre-game evaluations, the coach reportedly made a comment, direct, startling, and completely stripped of the usual polite praise. His assessment of Caitlin Clark wasn't laced with flattery. It was raw, honest, and powerful enough that, for a brief moment, even the typically unshakable Clark was caught off guard. This wasn't a typical nod of respect. It was a bold declaration, almost prophetic in tone, suggesting that what they were about to witness wasn't just talent, but transformation. A player whose presence demanded recalibration of what was possible on the court. His words sliced through the usual noise, setting the tone for a scrimmage that was shaping up to be anything but routine.
Received her. The way they celebrated her. It's quite a contrast that these women of color from Brazil and their coach had, as opposed to the American players and American women of color and how they treat.
But as striking as the coach's words were, they were merely the opening act. What followed was something far more unexpected, the transformation of the Brazilian team itself. According to those close to the scene and bits of chatter floating through basketball circles, Brazil came into the scrimmage brimming with confidence. Maybe even a touch of swagger. Reports surfaced of the team jokingly stepping onto the Indiana Fever logo during warm-ups, a classic mind game, meant to rattle the rookie phenom and set a defiant tone before tip-off. They weren't just there to play. They were there to push back, to challenge the rising star from the NCAA ranks who now carried the weight of a league's attention. But as the game unfolded, everything began to shift, and quickly. Once Caitlin Clark found her rhythm, unleashing that signature blend of deep-range precision, court vision, and almost telepathic awareness, the entire energy in the gym changed. The bold pre-game bravado? It began to fade. Fast. What started as competitive edge morphed into something altogether different, visible awe. Players who had walked in ready to rattle her were suddenly trailing her with wide eyes, seemingly studying her every move, not as rivals, but as admirers. The transformation was dramatic. You could feel the change in body language, in focus, in tone. It begged a bigger question: what could cause an experienced national team, proud, accomplished athletes in their own right, to so visibly change their approach mid-game? The answer was as clear as it was rare. When generational talent is on display, the game itself bends. And in that gym, on that day, Caitlin Clark wasn't just a player. She was the epicenter of something bigger.
And I understand a lot of this team was young. But the team she played against last night, getting pictures with Caitlin Clark at the end of the game, having her literally sign their jerseys. And those jerseys, you better believe, the coach of the rival team being in shock. Like, this is the dream team. This is the dream team. This is the...
What a performance it was. This wasn't just a strong showing, it was an 18-minute masterclass that shook the entire gym like a controlled detonation. A tightly packed burst of brilliance that left no doubt about who controlled the floor. In under a half's worth of playing time, Caitlin Clark didn't just light up the scoreboard, she conducted the game like a symphony. Every possession ran through her, every moment bent to her will. The raw numbers alone were eye-popping: 16 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. But the real jaw-dropper? A reported plus 42 impact while she was on the court. In less than 20 minutes. Still, even those stats only scratched the surface. What truly stunned observers was how effortlessly she operated. Deep threes from the logo, launched with the kind of relaxed rhythm most players reserve for shoot-arounds, dropped clean through the net like they'd been scripted. Every swish chipped away at Brazil's early bravado. Her passes? Bold, often delivered without even a glance, threading through defenders like lasers. It was as if she was operating in another dimension, where time slowed, lanes opened, and the court bent to her perspective. She read the defense not one, but 3 steps ahead, finding teammates before they even realized they were open. Brazilian defenders, skilled and seasoned, looked frozen, spinning, guessing. What Clark delivered wasn't just efficient, it was electric. A controlled explosion of precision and vision that felt more like a warning shot to the league than a simple scrimmage. Her message was clear, and it didn't need words. The dominance at Iowa wasn't a college phenomenon. It was the start of something much larger. And now, the WNBA would have to brace for a new kind of storm.
Had no answer whatsoever for Caitlin Clark. And they threw so many different looks at her. Like, I've never seen a team throw so many... They were getting her to sign their jerseys. She was signing the players' jerseys. This is like Dream Team. This is literally like Dream Team stuff. We haven't seen this since the damn Dream Team. She is literally signing the jerseys of teams she played against. She is signing their jerseys. They're that much in awe of her. And still, they were there. They were there. They were knocking her on her ass a couple of times. They were being physical. They were denying her. They didn't try to stop her in the game. They just did not have it. They're so excited. They're taking pictures with her after the game. They're taking pictures.
Then came the moment that pushed the entire scrimmage into the realm of the surreal, a moment that perfectly captured the magnitude of Caitlin Clark's impact. As the final buzzer sounded, and the last possessions faded into memory, the Brazilian players, those same athletes who had reportedly danced on the Fever logo just hours earlier, did something no one could have predicted. They didn't just line up for the routine post-game handshake. They formed a line for something much more symbolic. One by one, they approached Clark, not as opponents, but as admirers, asking her to autograph their jerseys, their practice shirts, anything they could turn into a keepsake from that day. This wasn't about celebrity. It wasn't just a memento from a hyped-up American prospect. It was something deeper. A gesture of respect, of recognition. These were national team players, skilled professionals, offering up the very fabric of their identity to be marked by the player who had just dismantled them on the court. Think about that, opponents asking their conqueror to sign the same gear they wore in battle. It didn't look like the end of a scrimmage. It looked like the backstage of a concert, with fans surrounding a headliner. And yet, through the awe, through the growing crowd and the flurry of requests, Caitlin Clark remained composed, gracious, approachable. She signed the items, shared quick smiles, connected, if only briefly, with players who had clearly been moved by more than just her stat line. In that moment, it became clear, her power went beyond points and passes. What she left on that gym floor wasn't just a highlight reel. It was a lasting impression, sealed not just in ink, but in mutual respect. This wasn't just a rising star flexing her dominance. It was a once-in-a-generation athlete proving she could shine at the highest level, while still staying grounded.
Caitlin Clark opening up the game, pull-up three, bang! To the logo three to close the third quarter, walking off to a standing ovation. Caitlin Clark pulling up from 36 feet out. From start to finish, there was never a doubt in our mind. There was never a time where we even thought to ourselves, is this game going to be close? Indiana comes out, 8-0 run, close out the first quarter, close out the second quarter, close out the third quarter, sit our starters in the fourth quarter, and by the time it's all said and done, the Indiana...
When you take a closer look at the Brazilian coach's reaction, it becomes clear that his early remarks were just scratching the surface. What began as a single, striking comment soon expanded into something far more revealing, a portrait of a veteran basketball mind completely taken aback by what he had just witnessed. This wasn't the usual post-game analysis. It wasn't routine praise handed out to a rising prospect. It was the kind of you only hear from someone who spent decades immersed in the game and suddenly sees something they can't fully explain. Imagine his internal dialogue, years spent drawing up plays, scouting talent, breaking down film, and then comes this young woman who seems to defy all conventional logic. Caitlin Clark didn't just play well, she played in a way that bent the framework he'd built his entire coaching career upon. The coach's reported remarks, overflowing with admiration, went beyond cultural boundaries or competitive pride. His tone didn't reflect defeat. It reflected discovery. He wasn't just acknowledging greatness, he was reacting to a shift in the basketball universe. Clark wasn't framed as a rookie phenom or simply the next big thing, she was something rarer. A disruptor. A player whose game suggested a turning point in the sport itself. For someone who's likely coached hundreds, maybe thousands of athletes, this wasn't just a notable performance. It was a moment of reckoning. His words held the weight of a man who's seen it all, until now. And in Caitlin Clark, he saw not just the future of women's basketball, but a future he hadn't dared imagine.
Clark, pull up three, you bet!
Second WNBA season, and she did not disappoint. She was raining threes. Her handle looked tighter than ever. Her vision was on point, and she brought this energy, and she brought the crowd, and everything was just
The overwhelming admiration from the Brazilian side didn't just spotlight Caitlin Clark's brilliance, it also quietly underscored a deeper, more complex contrast. A contrast that's been simmering beneath the surface of her early professional journey. While this international team responded with open respect and even reverence, Clark's reception at home, within the WNBA and broader U.S. media, has often been more layered. Sometimes celebratory, sometimes critical, and frequently entangled in long-standing narratives that go far beyond the hardwood. No blame needs to be assigned here. It's not about right or wrong, but rather about perspective. The Brazilian squad and their coach came into that gym without the weight of league politics, media narratives, or cultural baggage. They saw the player, not the headlines. And what they witnessed was raw, undeniable talent. They responded with a kind of pure appreciation that, in its simplicity, felt refreshing. It raises a compelling question. Are those outside the American sports ecosystem, those not immersed in the ongoing debates, rivalries, and social context, sometimes better positioned to recognize greatness for what it is, unfiltered? What the Brazilians offered wasn't just praise. It felt like a celebration of skill in its most essential form. A reminder that elite talent speaks a universal language, one that transcends borders, biases, and backstories. And maybe, just maybe, their joyful, unreserved response offers a subtle reflection back at the domestic discourse. An uncomfortable mirror, perhaps, but one worth looking into.
42. She played 18 minutes. She played 18 minutes and was plus 42. Plus 42. 42 in 18 minutes. And there was a stage where it was her with all the rookies and she was still just carrying them. She got 2 assists to, I think, to an Yvonne Egypt. 1 foul, 3 turnovers to 5 assists. And again, the turnovers were just trying mad stuff. Like, it is what it is. Don't really care that much. But in 18 minutes, she had 16.
What's truly extraordinary is how the details of this private, tightly controlled scrimmage still found their way into the public conversation, becoming the stuff of near legend. Despite the absence of cameras, media access, or roaring fans, the story broke through. The coach's striking remarks, the emotional shift in the Brazilian team, and the now iconic jersey signings, somehow, it all leaked. And once it did, it caught fire. In today's hyper-connected world, even behind closed doors, moments of true greatness are impossible to contain. When something this powerful happens, word finds a way out. This wasn't just another bullet point in the Caitlin Clark resume. It was an evolution of what's already being called the Clark effect, a phenomenon that's moved the needle on ticket sales, TV ratings, and public interest across every level of the game. But this time, the magic wasn't televised. It spread in whispers, secondhand accounts, and stunned retellings. And in some ways, that made it even more potent. This quiet scrimmage became a modern sports myth, proof that Clark doesn't need prime time or a sold-out arena to leave a mark. Her presence alone generates buzz. Her performance creates gravity. Even in a controlled gym, thousands of miles from the media circus, she sparked a moment the basketball world couldn't ignore. The encounter with Brazil added an entirely new layer to her expanding legend. It showed that her impact doesn't stop at national borders or league boundaries. It's bigger than that, organic, electric, and unmistakably global.
For Caitlin Clark, did she look rusty? I don't know. 16.6 rebounds, 5 assists, plus 42 plus minus in only 19 minutes of hoops. Caitlin Clark hoops are back.
What was it, exactly, about those brief 18 minutes that left such a lasting impression? First on those who saw it live, and soon after, on the wider basketball world. It wasn't just the stats. Sure, the numbers were impressive. But the deeper impact came from how Caitlin Clark did it. It was the fluidity, the control, the way she seemed to manipulate the pace of the game, not by speeding it up or slowing it down, but by owning it entirely. Clark wasn't just playing fast. She was playing aware, possessing what can only be described as a preternatural sense of timing and space. She read the floor like it was a second language, delivering passes and launching shots that most players wouldn't even see, let alone attempt with such precision. There was no wasted motion. Every dribble, every shift in weight, every decision felt surgically intentional. While most players chip away at defenses through sheer effort and volume, Clark appeared to be running a completely different software, more efficient, more advanced, and frighteningly effective. Each time she touched the ball, it felt like a real-time tutorial in offensive strategy. Not just basketball talent, but basketball intelligence operating at maximum speed. She didn't just play the game. She decoded it. And that's what truly sets her apart. This wasn't just a hot stretch or a flashy highlight reel, it was a compressed explosion of brilliance. A performance that turned a quiet scrimmage into a landmark moment. With every possession, Clark reminded everyone watching that she's not just ahead of the curve, she is the curve. In just 18 minutes, she delivered a performance so sharp, so efficient, so intellectually dominant, it became unforgettable. A showcase of how elite skill paired with elite vision doesn't just win games, it rewrites the standard.
She got by the defenders fairly easily in my estimation. She got by the other team's players fairly easy in my estimation. She moved pretty quickly in my estimation. If that's a step back with some tightness, what are we going to look like when we don't even have anything lingering in our legs at all? When we don't have to go onto the bike just to keep ourselves loose at all? What is that really going to look like? Caitlin Clark picking up right where she left off. If there was any...
The reaction from the Brazilian team reveals something profound, something that goes beyond typical athletic evaluation. How is it that Caitlin Clark's talent translated so instantly and powerfully to a group of seasoned international professionals, representing a nation with its own deep and proud sporting tradition? Perhaps it's because true greatness speaks a universal language. One that cuts through cultural differences, sheds any allegiance, and rises above the tangled narratives often spun by media outlets. The awe reflected in the eyes of those Brazilian players, the sincere respect woven through their coach's words, these weren't rehearsed reactions or polite compliments. They were raw, instinctive responses to witnessing something that defies easy explanation. Something unmistakably special. Inside that quiet gym, stripped of the usual fanfare, flashing cameras, and external pressures, Clark's game connected on a pure level. It communicated directly with the essence of basketball itself, the art of skill, vision, and mastery. It's a powerful reminder that when talent reaches a transcendent level, it doesn't just impress. It forms an immediate bond. It commands admiration that is spontaneous, sincere, and deeply human. Her impact was never just local or national. It was global, and more importantly, profoundly human. In truth, the Indiana Fever's closed-door scrimmage against Brazil was far more than a forgotten preseason workout. It was a snapshot, a microcosm, of Caitlin Clark's disruptive, dazzling arrival on the professional scene. From the Brazilian coach's striking declaration, to the team's dramatic transformation from playful challengers to devoted fans, from Clark's breathtaking 18-minute takeover on the court to the near-sacred moment of signing the jerseys of her opponents, these weren't isolated moments. They were pieces of a larger narrative. A story about a young phenom who forced everyone, from experienced international coaches to battle-hardened opponents, to pause, reflect, and acknowledge a rare, incandescent brilliance. And beyond the spectacle, this encounter leaves us with a lingering question to ponder. When talent is this undeniable, this game-changing, what does it truly take for it to be universally seen, celebrated, and embraced, untouched by the distractions and complexities that so often cloud our vision? Brazil, it seems, gave us a clear answer, not through headlines or hype, but through pure, unfiltered admiration from those fortunate enough to witness her magic firsthand.